Hi, this is Sushmita Ghosh. Today we will be reading a chapter from the English Reader of Class 5 of D.A.V. Public School. If you find this video to be useful and informative for your child, then do subscribe my channel and like this video. I shall be reading few lines and will then be explaining them in details. So let us begin. The Monday Morning Blues. Monday Morning Blues is the chapter that we will be discussing today. Monday mornings always found Tom Sawyer miserable because with it began another week's slow suffering in school. Tom lay in bed and thought, if I were sick, I could stay away from school and go fishing. So in the very first line, we find that this story is about a boy whose name is Tom Sawyer. And he is a student who studies in a school, and it is Monday, the first day of the week, and his school days begin until the next weekend. However, for him going to school is nothing but slow suffering. In other words, Tom Sawyer did not like going to school or studying. Instead of getting up from the bed, he laid back and began to think that if he was sick or unwell, he could easily make an excuse and stay back home and not to attend his school, and instead he can go for fishing. He thought further about it, but despite all his attempts to detect some symptoms, he could not find anything wrong with himself. His hopes began to fail. He was thinking of an excuse, a reason to skip the school for the day. However, numerous attempts to find or detect any kind of reasons or symptoms that would stop him from going to school on that very day, he failed because he could not find anything wrong with himself, and therefore all his hopes to remain absent that day began to fail. Suddenly he discovered something. One of his upper front teeth was loose. He decided to use it as an excuse for not going to school. All of a sudden, after so much of grilling, he discovered something. One of his upper teeth, front teeth, was loose, that is the milk teeth. It was loose and it was about to fall off. So he decided to use it as an excuse and to remain absent. He was about to start mourning. He remembered that if his aunt came to know, she would pull it out and that would hurt. So he decided to use this idea as an excuse. However, he remembered that if he starts mourning, that is, if he starts making sound, expressing pain, his aunt will hear it and she will come and would remove the tooth with her hand, and that would hurt Tom. That is painful. So he decided to use the tooth as an excuse some other day. He went back to thinking of some other way to fake illness. Therefore, the idea of using a loose tooth as an excuse to miss the school did not work out, and he decided to think further, another way to fake his illness, to act as if he was unwell. He remembered hearing the doctor describe an illness that had caused a patient to lose a finger. The boy eagerly drew his sore toe from under the sheet and held it up for inspection. It seemed worthwhile to chance it, so he fell groaning on the bed. While he was ransacking his brain with ideas, he remembered that he had once heard a doctor describe an illness or a medical condition that led a patient to lose one of his fingers. He immediately drew his sore toe that was under the bedsheet or whatever blanket he was covering his legs with. Now, sore toe means it's a painful toe. He might have injured that toe anyway, and therefore it is painful. He held it up and he started inspecting. And the condition of the toe kind of became a reason to find an excuse of not going to school, and therefore he wanted to take a chance and want to act. So he immediately fell on the bed and started groaning. Now the next paragraph. But Sid, who lay in the next bed, slept on. Tom groaned louder, but no result from Sid. So Tom Sawyer laid down on the bed and started groaning. He was trying to attract attention from the person who was sleeping on the next bed. His name is Sid. However, Sid kept on sleeping even though Tom groaned, and he could not wake Sid up. Finally, he got up, shook Sid hard, and then went back to his bed groaning. When he found that he was unable to wake up Sid with his groaning, he got up from his bed. He went and shook Sid hard, which broke his sleep, and then he finally went to his bed and started groaning. Sid yawned, stretched, then brought himself upon his elbow with a snort and began to stare at Tom. Tom went groaning. So once Sid was shaken up from bed. So Sid was finally awake. He yawned and he stretched himself. Then he brought himself upon his elbow, that is, he kept his head on the elbow, and he started making sounds by blowing air through the nose and mouth. That is what we call snort. And he began to look at Tom. And Tom kept on groaning. The next paragraph. Tom, what's going on? Asked Sid, frightened by the noise Tom was capable of producing. No response. Hey, Tom, what is the matter, Tom? So now Sid started speaking. He was worried about Tom and he asked Tom, what's wrong? He was afraid because of the noise that Tom was producing. That is, he was groaning. He was making sounds as if he was suffering from some very severe pain. Tom did not respond to Sid, and therefore Sid went on asking him about what is the matter. Tom moaned out, Oh, don't Sid, don't juggle me. But I must. Don't groan like that. Tom, it's awful. How long have you been groaning this way? Hours. Oh, don't Sid, I'm dying. No, Tom, you ain't dying. It makes my flesh crawl to hear you. What is the matter? I must call Auntie. Now, Sid did not understand that Tom was actually pretending. He was acting. He was faking an illness. He was kind of groaning, and that disturbed Sid very much. He was very much concerned. He said that he will definitely ask him and ask Tom not to groan like that because it is really very awful. And he even inquired as to how long was he in pain because he was groaning for some time. To this, Tom said that he had been groaning for hours, which was actually not true. And he also claimed that he is dying. Now Sid became more concerned. He said, No, you are not dying. I am really feeling very bad because you are in pain. I must call Auntie. I forgive you everything, Sid, said Tom in a fresh bout of groans. When I am gone, you give my window sash and my cat with one eye to that new girl who's come to the town and tell her. But Sid had flown downstairs and informed Aunt Polly, Come quick, Auntie, Tom's dying." In this paragraph, we find that Tom is now speaking to Sid, and he is saying that he forgives Sid. And with this, another fresh groaning starts from Tom's end. Since he said earlier that he is dying, he continues with that and says that when he is gone, he owned a window sash and one cat with one eye, and he wants that to be given to the new girl who had come to the town. He also begins with some other words that he wants to tell that girl, and Sid should convey that. But he sees that by that time Sid had already ran downstairs to call Aunt Polly. He goes to Aunt Polly and asks her to come quickly because he feels, according to Tom's word, that Tom is dying. "What rubbish! I don't believe it." But the poor lady hurried upstairs with Sid and Mary at her heels. Her face grew white and her lips trembled. When Sid came and told Aunt Polly that Tom is about to die, Aunt Polly immediately says that she does not believe it, but yet the poor lady hurries up the stairs along with Sid and Mary. Her face was white and her lips were trembling. "What's the matter with you, Tom?" she cried. "Oh, Auntie, my toe." "What is the matter with your toe?" "Oh, Auntie, my sore toe is going to fall off." Now, Aunt comes to the room and asks Tom what is the matter. To that, Tom says that it was his toe which is about to fall off. The old lady sank down in a chair with relief. She laughed a little, then cried a little, then did both together. Upon hearing what Tom had to say, that his toe is about to fall off, the lady immediately understood the situation and she sat down in a chair with relief. She had come upstairs and her face was white and her lips were trembling, so she was frightened. Upon hearing what Tom has to say about the reason as to why he was groaning, the lady felt relief. She laughed a little and then cried, and again after some time she cried and laughed together. This made her feel better. She said, "Tom, you really did frighten me. Now you stop this nonsense and get out of your bed." Then once she is relieved and she relaxed a bit, she asks Tom to get down from the bed and told him that you need not fear, because this, according to her, is a nonsense, and he asks Tom to stop this nonsense. Tom felt foolish at his act now that he was caught. He said, "Auntie, my toe hurt so much that I wasn't worried about my tooth at all." Now immediately Tom understood that his plan did not work well and he felt foolish. So he tried to cook up another story. Since he was caught, he said, "My toe is hurting so much that I was not even worried about my tooth." Now he is about to begin the story about his tooth. "What's the matter with your tooth?" "Well, one of them's loose and it aches awfully." Now Aunt asks him what is wrong with his tooth. To this he says that one of his teeth is loose and it is really paining. "Open your mouth and let me see," said his auntie. "Yes, it is loose, all right, but you are not going to die because of that. Mary, get me a silk thread and a chunk of fire out of the kitchen." Now Aunt Polly says, or rather instructs Tom to open his mouth so that she could see. And she immediately says that there is a loose teeth, but that will not kill Tom. Instead, he asks Mary to bring a silk thread and a chunk of fire from the kitchen. Tom said, "Oh, please, Auntie, don't pull it out. It doesn't hurt me any more. Please don't, Auntie. I don't want to stay home from school. Now again his second act failed. His second plan to stop himself from going to the school failed, and he was now scared. He asks his auntie not to pull out the tooth because it will be painful, and he immediately says that that particular tooth doesn't hurt him anymore. And he even says that he will go to school. He does not want to stay home. Oh, you do, don't you? So all this drama was because you thought you'd get to stay home from school and go fishing, Tom? Tom, I love you so much, but I am very unhappy with you. You seem to try every way you can break my old heart with your outrageousness. Now Aunt understood the reason of all these dramas and acts that Tom Sawyer was putting up. And immediately she says, so these were the dramas that you had planned so that you need not go to school that day, so that you can stay away from the school and then go to fishing. Then go for fishing. She also says that though she loves Tom very much, but it was his act that makes her unhappy. Tom makes tries every way so that he can break his aunt's heart. Now the term outrageousness meaning shocking behavior. We have come to the last paragraph. By this time, the dental instruments were ready. The old lady fastened one end of the silk thread to Tom's tooth with a loop and tied the other to the bedpost. By the time they were having this conversation, Mary bought all the equipments, the dental instruments that she was asked to. The lady fastened one end of the silk thread to Tom's tooth. In other words, he tied one end of the silk thread to Tom's tooth with a loop, and the other end she ties it to the bedpost. Then she seized the chunk of fire and suddenly thrust it almost into the boy's face. The tooth hung dangling by the bedpost now. Once she had tied the silk thread to Tom's tooth with a loop and tied the other to the bedpost, she seized the chunk of fire and suddenly thrust it almost into the face of the boy. Then the tooth hung dangling by the bedpost now. So the tooth finally was moved out from its position and it was dangling by the bedpost. The book, or this small piece, was taken from a book named Tom Sawyer, and it was written by Mark Twain. Thank you.